This past Friday, we spoke with the singer Matt from band Vowws. They will be opening for Deftones this Monday, April 18th at the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium. He spoke with us about their music inspirations and the music scene from Australia to LA. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, Matt. It's like an honor and a privilege. I've been listening to some of your music recently, and I really love how I feel like it's very related to like OG goth, like very new wave goth as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So, where are you from originally?
We're from Sydney, Australia.
Okay,
but
cool.
we live in LA now, obviously.
And when did the band first start? Did it start in LA or did it start in Australia?
So Riz and I met in college way back in Australia, and we played in a bunch of bands and stuff we started in the kind of Sydney experimental scene. When I say experimental, like, I suppose experimental rock music. So it covered the gamut from like heavy metal to like really whacked out like performance art kinds of bands. And we had this little collective that we all, we used to sort of hook up with touring bands in Brisbane and Melbourne. There's not that much touring that you can do in Australia. It's like a really spread out place with like a relatively small population. So we kind of cut our chops there as soon as we could. We were like, we've got to get out of here because it's a bit of an isolated place still, even in some ways. So when you're trying to do music there, especially because so many of our musical influences are from other places and, so many of them from America, we just wanted to get out of there basically and sort of spread our wings a little bit more, I suppose. So we started in Australia, but this iteration, like as Vowws, that started basically in 2014, 15 in LA.
Oh, wow, cool. And where did the name Vowws come from?
We wanted to have something that was like ambiguous enough that you could draw your own meaning from it, but it had a sort of like a drama to it and a heaviness to it. I don't mean heaviness like heavy music. I mean heaviness like a emotional sort of heaviness to it and like a sort of notion of like commitment and things like that. So that's where it came from. But the process of it was basically writing a bunch of words out and sending them back and forth and trying to figure out which was the least bad name. So that's basically where it came from.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. So when I do listen to your music, it sounds very similar to like Bauhaus and some stuff like Susie and the Banshees. Do you take inspiration from those new wave musicians?
Well, it's funny. Riz and I have been talking about this a little bit lately, actually, because we've had a lot of associations with like 90s stuff. So we've had Chino. We did something with Gary Newman, so we do have 80s, like direct 80s connections. But what we've talked about is the fact that a lot of those 90s bands that we're influenced by, and that would be bands like Smashing Pumpkins and stuff as well, they were influenced really heavily by 80s bands. So it's almost like what we picked up, we were getting sort of filtered through those people, and that's why I think in some cases we bring a bit of like a more of a harder edge to it with some of our songs. But having said that, like bands like Depeche Mode and Bauhaus, they weren't things that we listened to growing up or anything as much as people might think, but like figuring out how to do music and how to present it to the world and stuff, they were like one-way mentors, like just we looked at them and sort of figured out how we could try and do it, and they definitely were validating in that way.
Yeah, awesome. So, and going back to Gary Newman, how was it working with him?
It was remote, literally. We basically sent him the song, like we wrote that song for him, so we knew someone at the time who knew his manager. I actually think we were trying to get on to his show. We were asking if we could support him at the time, and I think we found out that someone else was supporting, so we basically asked him like, oh, well, would you do a collaboration, just thinking that he'd say no, or like he'd say like, this is how much it costs or whatever. And then we went away and wrote that song. We just made a demo and we sent it to him, and then we just heard back like that he would do it. We were blown away because at the time, like, we had not done anything close to that. Like we were no one. We were just starting out, really. Oh, and sorry, to answer the rest of your question remotely, we basically sent him the demo and then sent him like these stems, so just like recordings of like a demo vocal part, and said, can you sing this? Can you sing this? Can you sing this? And it took ages, but he sent eventually, I think it was close to Christmas, we just got an email from his manager said with like a Dropbox link or something like that. It was like, here it all is.
Wow.
So then we took it to the studio and put it in. So we never actually spoke to him.
Oh wow. Okay, so it was just like very done. Like here it is. It's like ordering vocals.
It's pure in that way, right? Like it was all just about the music. There was nothing personal involved.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And when I like watch your music videos too, like what are your inspirations when you're like making them?
The music videos are definitely Riz does a lot of the sort of the heavy lifting as far as that stuff is concerned, but her influences, it'd be tricky for me to say exactly what they are necessarily, but she has a lot of influences of like sort of 80s and 90s like thriller movies and stuff like that. Like Cape Fear is one of her favorite movies. There's a lot of old gangster movies and stuff that she takes a lot of influence from. And then I suppose just like heavy imagery that has a lot of drama to it. Like that's what we try and go for. Our visuals influence the music, and the music influences the visuals. Like they're a little bit one and the same in some ways. Like I suppose I do more of like the initial writing of the music, but I am always like I'm really inspired by visuals when I'm writing, and Riz is really inspired by the music when she's doing the visuals as well. It'd be tough for me to exactly say like where her influences lay, but we do influence each other a lot in that way. It's a pretty small world that we have together, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Also, like, I really like the song, The Great Sun. Like, what were the inspirations for writing that song?
That one, I actually was reading a book at the time, The Drowned World by J.G. Ballard. I didn't know who J.G. Ballard was. I think we'd posted a picture and someone said, oh, that's a cool Ballardian pick. And so I was like, oh, who's Ballard? And then I looked into it, and then I found this book, and I was reading it, and it was very inspiring to me because it was sort of about, like, it's basically like in the future, a dystopian future, but the world is flooded because the ice caps have melted, and it's really, really hot. And basically there's like a small group of weather experts or oceanographers or something like that, and they're sort of just doing these laborious studies of like the new like reptile swarms that have taken over the world and stuff, and eventually they all start to sort of like regress back into like a reptile kind of existence, and they all get kind of transfixed by like the heat of the place and the primordial nature of it and stuff. And so that was a big inspiration. And for me, like the Great Sun is just like I'm headed for the Great Sun. I'm just like a zombie sort of like walking towards my primordial past self kind of thing. So it's just like about regression, I suppose.
Yeah, wow, that's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, how does it feel to tour with the Deftones?
Oh, it's amazing. Well, the craziest thing is that, like, it was last night. Last night was the first show, and that was our first show for 2 years.
Wow.
The previous show that we played was we were touring with Poppy, and we finished the American run of that tour. It was a great tour. We were having so much fun, and then we flew to Europe to do the European leg, and then as soon as we got to the UK, literally the day after we got there, we found out that it was cancelled. Came back, I swear there was a bunch of sick people on the plane, like it felt like a hospital flight or something, and we got pretty sick coming back. That was that. And for the last 2 years, we've just been doing like what we can, with film scoring and writing lots of music and just stuff that you can do, while you're in isolation or whatever. And we've missed touring so much. For me, speaking for myself, it makes me feel alive. It's like challenging, and you're out meeting people all the time, and you're playing in front of audiences and you have that energy. But because it's 2 years, it was kind of terrifying. You doubt yourself, and you're like, you think it's like riding a bike. You've got your muscle memory and you can just go and do it again, but there's always that self-doubt. It was scary to be doing it at that level, like in front of so many people with a fair amount of pressure and stuff. But as soon as we got on stage, we realized that yes, it is like riding a bike, and it's fine. And it was like fun right away. So it was really emotional. Like after we finished playing, I had to go and lie down. It was really special. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And Deftones, we haven't spoken much to Gojira, but Deftones are all really nice, or really cool.
Awesome, yeah. Have there been any like more memorable moments on tour so far?
Honestly, like just getting out into the open road. Like we had an 11-hour drive the first day because our merch arrived late in LA. So we had to sort of gun it up to Ashland. Actually, Ashland, Oregon is like this amazing town. It's really, really charming and quaint, and we stayed in this old, I don't know if it's a haunted hotel, but Riz said she had a dream last time where she was dreaming of ghosts or something, and she woke up and convinced it was haunted. So maybe that so far is staying in that old hotel, besides the show, which was really good. Yeah, being in a haunted hotel in Oregon after an 11-hour drive was really cool.
Wow, no, that sounds like a trip. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's just so fucking good to be back out again.
Yeah, no, definitely. And how do you feel, like now in 2022, like with the goth scene? Like, do you feel like it's changed in a way, or do you think it's evolving, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm definitely not an expert on it because we're a little bit detached from it in some ways. Like I said, our world is a little bit small. Like, we try and do the best work we can between us and really just focus on that and let things take care of themselves. But I would imagine it's probably getting a bit more like splintered and diverse in its influences and stuff. Like the way music, and I think like media in general is going at the moment, is like there's so much information flying around. The pace of change with information and stuff is only accelerating. So I think, with music, like we've just got everything at our fingertips. So I would say that like there'd be more diversity in influences. Like back in the day, I suppose if you were into like Bauhaus and The Cure, you could never be into like maybe you couldn't be into like Queen. There were really big dividing lines between genres, right? And it was a cultural thing where like punk fans hated like prog rock fans and stuff. Rock and roll fans hated disco or something. I think all those lines are completely gone now. So I think that with goth and darkwave and stuff, it'd be pretty much the same. Just get your influences from it wherever you want and just make it cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like to agree with you on that. Like in the 20th century, I feel like everything was so, I guess, like segregated in a way in music. It's like, if you like this, you do that. You can't go over here. But now it's like everything cultural wise is a huge melting pot. And I think that's only helping like musicians and music lovers more expand and be even more creative.
Yeah, like, why have arbitrary barriers, Like, let's just have whatever is good.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for sitting down with us here at KUSF.
Hi, this is Matt from Vowws. You're listening to KUSF.